I'm also going to share some very interesting statistic I came across a few months ago. For the first time in human history, there are more grandparents in the world than grandchildren. Human populations are getting older. We are going to spend more and more of our life after a certain age. And let's face it, people are having fewer children. So my personal involvement started from the fact that being in practice for 3 decades, the women you look after stay with you. A gynecologist, and I'm so happy that Lara's family is just all women, because we gynecologists love the fact that we look after women and don't have to look after men. Those women are now coming to me in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They stay with you, and they are coming to me with their issues of the midlife.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at these issues of the midlife, you realize that every woman does it differently, and sometimes doesn't even know what she's doing. There was a study from Engender Health in the UK which said that 65% of women in the menopause transition, and I think this is an underestimate, will have some symptoms. Of these, about 40% will be quite severe, and 10% it would be completely disruptive, right? That's the kind of half of your population is going to go through this. 65% of them are going to go through some symptoms, and 10% of that half of the world's population are going to go through distressing symptoms, right? Now the problem is sometimes these symptoms go unrecognized. So to answer your question, I would have to start with the term perimenopause. Menopause event, last period, momentary, 12 months no periods, you're menopausal. But this starts at least 6 years before, and that's the confusion. A woman comes to me and says, I have menstrual disturbances, but I know what's happening. I'm getting my hot flushes, but I still menstruate. I'm getting all these mood issues, but I'm menstruating. And finally, of course, you know, menopause, if there's one term I use for menopause, it's dryness. Dryness, dryness, dryness. I'm menstruating. So that's the perimenopause. Now, when a woman comes to a doctor, there is another angle to it. I remember Oprah Winfrey once saying that I went to 5 specialist doctors and none of them told me I was menopausing. Oprah Winfrey, the best doctors in the US. Doctors see things from their perspective. You go to them with flushes and palpitations, they'll check out your heart. The dermatologist will do the skin, the psychiatrist will say you're depressed. Excuse me, again, we have a house in Lonavala. My contractor comes to me a few months ago and says, my wife had a cardiac episode. And we've done all the investigations and I don't know what we're going to do. And I said, okay, how old is she? 47. Is she getting a period? She had a hysterectomy a few months ago. That poor woman was having a hot flush in the middle of the night and everyone thought she was having a cardiac arrest. Okay? So this is where things are getting better. They're getting better because information is out there. The information has to be better. The information shouldn't be something that puts fear, but puts confidence.
You know, I want to briefly ask you something, because you gave the example of Oprah, right? We're talking about the developed market. We're talking about somebody who's extremely confident, etc. Do you think that there is a tendency among doctors, as it is in our conditioning, to mask that they're going through menopause? Because there's also a fear that's on the other side. Just curious.
So right, now, thanks to the book, we've been interacting with a lot of women and we hear so many stories from women. Medicine is all about stories. Suchitra and me hear stories every day. Yes. So our experience is not one woman's but 1,000 women's. A woman told me she went to a doctor with classic menopausal symptoms. Wonderful doctor, she loved him, he delivered her babies. And she says, when I told him, you know what he did, doc? He stood up, he shut my file and he says, this is going to last for the next 2 or 3 years, don't worry, it's going to be gone. When you take care of this woman, and this is something Suchitra and me were just conversing, you need to give time, you need to listen, you need to counsel, and unfortunately our model of medicine has always been very reactive. We fix things. I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be just fixing things, you're supposed to be listening, hearing, and 50% of problems are gone, and the remaining 50% today, I must say this here, and this is what you've got to convey, because this is a great group. This is the group which is going to put things out there. Medical therapy is evidence-based to help that individual woman who needs it. This misconception women have the moment I say hormones and they panic. I'm sorry. There are cases this is the treatment of choice and you should be open to it. But what you have to do is give them the tools to go and demand the care that they deserve. There's one line I would like to say about hormones is, please understand, hormone therapy is researched. Whether it's the pill or whether it's hormone therapy, no medication in the history of mankind has been researched as much. Personally, I always tell the patient, this is the safest thing for you. Hormones are safe. Some women are dangerous. So we just have to find out who shouldn't be taking it, and everyone else, if they need it, can take them very safely.
Okay, Dr. Pandit, part of what we all are discussing here also puts the onus of being self-aware, raising your hand, making that call to a doctor on the women going through this. And that will happen when they're more and more aware of the symptoms. So first part of my question is, do you really feel as a doc that women are even getting aware? And second part of it is that what is it that you tell them to watch out for in order for them to raise that mild alarm to say, okay, let me just go meet somebody and get this going on a journey that will solve it or guide me?
Right, thanks, Shali. As Dr. Nozer rightly pointed out, women are not as aware of what they're going through simply because they don't want to accept that they have a problem. Now, as you mentioned figures, the Indian figures, some of them mention that 80% of women go through the menopause, and probably it's just mild or moderate symptoms, but there are those 10 to 12% who are very severe, and probably they will come up. But what about the remaining? Why are they suffering in silence? So some of the things like hot flushes, night sweats, simple thing like falling of hair, irritability, confusions, the typical mind fog that women talk about, and then backaches. And some of them are, like having vaginal dryness, genitourinary symptoms. They will talk about the irregular menses, but then they don't want to come forward. And if they ignore these symptoms, these can get more severe. And the severe ones they need to know about is, these hot flushes and night sweats can become so severe, they affect your sleep patterns. And if your sleep patterns are affected, you are more depressed, your quality of work suffers. Whether you're a homemaker or whether, you're working somewhere, both the things, the quality of life quotient is very, very important. And, the long-term symptoms women need to know. If you suffer for a long time, your heart is not going to be with you. One misconception I'd like to tell you that most of the people tend to think women don't get heart attacks. It's only the men who get it. But remember, at 48, 49, 50, our hormones, our estrogen has fallen down, and we are as predisposed to cardiac events as men are. So therefore, and there's also a redistribution of abdominal fat, because the lipid friendly, we call lipids, it's the fats. So the heart friendly fats go down and the unfriendly ones start going up. And because of the redistribution of the fat, women also tend to put on a lot of weight around the belly. The metabolism reduces unless you're really, someone like Lara, Dutta, who's into, a lot of physical activity. And today you're seeing a lot more people doing that. But unless they learn that, they will have long-term consequences. And osteoporosis, we tend to think osteoporosis is a silent killer. The bones get brittle, and because of the vasomotor symptoms, the incidence of falls, the impact of the falls, the incidence of fractures goes high. So these are the long-term problems. And remember, breast cancer is something, women fear. But in the 5th and the 6th decade of life, that's the time it's detected the most. So prevention, nobody can prevent breast cancer, but at least you can diagnose it much more earlier. I mean, we're not trying to get medical, but these are some of the realities. And Alzheimer's, nobody knows really what causes it. But we definitely know that when you're in the postmenopausal phase, more women get into it. So activity-wise, mental activity, physical activity, all these things women need to know. So change of your lifestyles. Eating well, it's easy to say eat well, but what is eating well? A balanced diet. good carbs, good amount of proteins, less of fats, eat at the right time. You know, we tend to, Indian women or Indian families tend to eat late at night, 10 o'clock, 10:30 when the husband comes, and then, you know, she'll just clear up, and then they're in bed watching telly. So that is one of the worst exercises one can do, is getting into bed soon after. So eat in time, drink plenty of fluids, have lots of fruits, nuts. And you know, today there are so many veggies around which are different. You know, you can have the salads, you can have whatever, but get onto a good diet, exercise well, walk well, think positive, sleep well. I think that's so important, and have that health consciousness. So talk about your symptoms, don't confine it to yourself, and don't suffer silently. We're all there. You know, we as doctors are there. You know, we as influencers are there to tell women, speak up, speak up. And that's what they have to do.
At an individual level, at a corporation level, I know companies want to talk about it, but you know, they'll do it on that one single day by sending one emailer, and it's still, it's not a word that they're very comfortable with, as they haven't been in the case of menstruation either. But I think one of the things that makes this audience here and the panel here very, very empowering is that we are speaking up, we are saying the terms they need to be called, and we're normalizing it. So from a conversation starter point of view, where does a corporation begin, and how does the work environment change?
So Shaili, before I get to the answer to your question, just a quick update. So Abbott, so we are one of the women leaders, I mean the therapy of women's health, so we are leaders, and we are committed to empowering women live healthy, take control of their own health, and we ensure and strive seamlessly to support them at every stage of their lives. So starting from a menarche to a menopause. So coming to menopause, so Shaili, I would like to tell you that there was a large-scale, robust survey which was conducted by Abbott. Okay, so this survey was basically to understand the local experience, the quality of life impacting the women in the menopausal space, okay, and what do the caregivers feel about these women. So out of this survey, there is one stat which I would like to tell you. So 73% of women, when I say women, these are the working women in the menopausal age group, they feel the need to take leave from work because of the menopausal symptoms. So this is India. But when I have to talk on the global front, so there is a study which was done in the United Kingdoms. Okay, so this was also a study done in the working population by the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. Even that study stated a 63% increase in the stress level in the menopausal age group women because of these symptoms. So in all, the working women, as you rightly mentioned, so these women are in that stage of the career where they are actually doing amazingly well. They are leaders in the industry, they are assets to the organization. These leaders make a difference to the lives of the people they are working alongside. So it's our moral duty to support these women. So when you talk about Abbott, so we do our bit. Firstly, we do tie up with healthcare professionals and societies to make women menopause aware. They're supposed to know what they're supposed to expect when they transition into this stage of life. We've launched the next chapter so that there are more authentic stories to relate to, and they can have more transparent and open conversation. And Shaili, as Lara had mentioned, there's something coming up very soon in the next few minutes for the audience out here, and a very interesting tool which will also help these working women live life better and live life to the fullest.
So, you know, one of the things that we shouldn't forget is at the time that women get their menopause symptoms in the working environment, they're actually no longer workers, they're leaders.
Absolutely.
And they literally are at the place where they could not just drive some change, they could make the men uncomfortable. And why do I use the word uncomfortable? Because it takes time for them to get used to understanding what are the various things that women go through at the workplace, and how much of the workplace goes back with them, which is another big part of their stress that you talked about. So let's talk about stress. I think you kind of talked about the film industry and the entertainment industry. Other than somebody mentioning Bombay Begums, and hopefully there'll be more stuff coming up, we don't like talking about these things, right? I mean, women's health, you only go to doctors for good news. Pretty much it. Just curious what your experience is, and if you are sensing change. Okay, the laughter gives it away.
See, let's break it down. I mean, it's wonderful, of course, and it's very, very important to talk about statistics, and it's very, very important to talk about the very technical aspects, the medical aspects of menopause. But I think the one thing that we can all relate to is personal stories, right? Personal experiences.
Yeah.
That's what makes it palatable. That's what makes it say, oh, that happened to me. I get that. So for me, Shelley, I mean, I've been in an industry, everybody knows, is very, very male-driven. I mean, we're fighting many things on many levels, and some wonderful women that have come before me have paved the path, made it easier for me. I continue to do the same for women that will come after me. So, you know, I mean, we won't bring them up here, but there are many things: pay parity, misogyny, inclusion, blah, blah, blah. One of the things that I've faced in my workspace itself is male colleagues telling me years ago, what is wrong with you? Are you on your period or what? Really? And I can promise you, I cannot be the only woman who's experienced that. I mean, we face it in every industry, regardless of where we're at, you know. That why are you being so crabby today? What's gotten into you? Are you on your period? Yeah, maybe I am, you know, but so what? It doesn't change me from the way that I am on any other day, excuse me. That's signing up for inhabiting this planet with the opposite sex called women, you know. But again, to put it into context, let me describe. So the man that I'm married to, wonderful man, Mr. Mahesh Bhupati, is a sports person, right? He's been taught since childhood to grind through the pain. I mean, the man is a wall, literally. You can hit him with a Grand Slam win. You can hit him with a loss at the final. You can hit him with a first round loss. The expression and the whatever is exactly the same, because that's how he's been reared. Grind through the pain. Now, for a man like that to understand why the woman in his life has suddenly gone off the rails one day, I mean, for him, he hasn't been raised in the manner to understand that there needs to be empathy, or there needs to be understanding, or there needs to be sensitivity. And then divine justice, the man has had a wonderful baby girl, you know. So now he's got his mom, he's got his sister, who is his only sibling, he's got his wife, and then he's got his daughter. And I have to say, commendable, you know, just it's amazing how much all we women in his life have rallied around turning this man who's been raised in a very specific way to be a certain, you know, kind of person to thrive in his industry, to be sensitive to what a woman around him is going through. So today in our family, these conversations are very normal. I mean, I can't, sometimes there are days I can't remember why I've walked into the room, or, you know, कि अभी उसको आज cook को क्या बोलूँ कि क्या खाना पकाओ, and I know what I want to go and tell him, but then by the time I've gone in there, it's just gone. You know, it's brain fog. So the conversation in the house is very normal. I'm like, okay, please remind me again, what is it that I wanted to do? Because I seem to be, you know, my menopausal brain has sort of kicked in, or pre-menopause, whatever you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is that we talk about these things very normally in the house. You know, if I am genuinely feeling something, unfortunately for my husband, I'm a very expressive person. And I find great relief in just telling somebody what I'm going through. You know, so it's laid out on him. So I just want to tell women as well that don't feel guarded, or don't feel scared, or don't feel, you know, held back in any which way. That I can't say this to my spouse, or my partner, or my father, or my son, or my colleague. I promise you, they can handle it. Every single man on this planet will find a way to handle it. And that shouldn't be the reason for you to hold back. And
because you are already handling it anyway, right? So why can't the others too? Yeah.
Okay.
You want to finish that?
No,
yeah.
I'm going to, it's going to get really long, so I'm going to pass it over to
Okay, good. All right. But you know, one thing that, that sort of drives this whole idea, why we even come down to having these conversations, is to the point that Lara made about the daughter came around, right? Essentially, that means we need to start young. And I think that's my perfect segue to ask Dr. Pandit about how she's trying to change this narrative at a fairly early stage so that young people know that this is something that will come at them, they're better prepared, and most importantly, they will reach out to experts for advice?
Right. Thanks, Shelley. Again, when I was president of our federation, Foxy, I had this concept of youth melas, and youth melas was basically for empowering young boys and girls between the age groups of 15 to 20 or 14 to 20. And we were talking to them about reproductive health and, how do you promote the concept of wellness and exercise and nutrition. And we had one session on how do you make your bones stronger? How do you build up the bone mineral density of the bones? So we used to tell them, well, at the age of 25, you have the maximum peak bone mass. So, eat well, have lots of, milk, calcium, exercise, expose yourself to the sun so that you get your vitamin D and your bones will be strong because it's your reserve for the future. And remember, today we are the youngest population in the world, but 2 decades down the line, we are going to be the oldest population. So we are going to have a lot of men and women above the age of 45, 50, and then going on to the geriatric side. So you have to learn to take care of yourselves right from now, build a healthy future, and be sensitive to what the older people in the house are going through, particularly your mothers. And believe me, I had a woman who came into my OPD, and she was 51. She had just had her menopause, and she was having severe problems. Her daughter-in-law brought her. And she said, doc, I have 3 sons. My older son is married, and it was my daughter-in-law who heard me out. She saw me getting those hot flushes, night sweats, irritability, tiredness, and she brought me. And I'm so glad that the younger people now are aware. And naturally, if the mother takes care of her daughter at her menarche, when she starts her periods, making sure she's comfortable, the daughter should also do a favor in return. And not just to her mother, but to her mother-in-law or to anyone at work. So I think, that's what we taught them at the youth melas, to be sensitive towards the needs of the growing body. You want a good adolescence, you want a good reproductive period, but you also want a healthy perimenopause and a postmenopausal period. And through our associations, we have the Indian Menopause Society, you have Foxy, and you have so many other organizations who work together with NGOs to have, it's like having small little workshops where you're encouraging doctors, general practitioners, and even young gynecology students to be sensitive to this particular issue. Don't just talk about surgery. It's also creating awareness. It requires a little bit of hand-holding, skills to understand that this woman is having a problem and what can we do. And I think because everybody gets together and, with the pharma, some of the pharmas are doing really excellent philanthropic work like Abbott, getting together to cater to the women's needs so more and more women can freely discuss this issue and come forward for help.